I'm not around, have you found I'm always on your mind? And when you hear my name, does it sound the same as you felt when you heard it last time? Do you see flowers in my hair that aren't really there? Do you feel the pain when I'm blue? And when you see me, does it seem to be that blues change to life in bloom?
Hello, everyone. I'm Mizpah. Welcome to the Boiling Point podcast. Marcus Frederiksen plays us in and out of every episode. This is a special episode. And check out his music at reverbnation.com/Marcus Frederiksen. In this special, we have an incredible guest. Please welcome Andy from Andy's Little Homestead. That be you. So let's start out with, give us an explanation of Andy's Little Homestead, how long you've been doing it, that kind of stuff.
Well, the short version of the real long story is that 3.5 years ago, I moved from Eastern North Carolina up to a pretty random place in the middle of the woods in northern Michigan. And at the time, my wife and I were separated. I was actually going through a bit of a rough spot. And one day I picked up my phone and started filming what I was doing. And somewhere along the way, I got the right combination of breaking things, fixing things, building things, and making wiener jokes, to where I ended up with a little over 700,000 Facebook followers. And, it just kind of has kept going from there. And here I am. I could not have planned that on my own, but that's where we are.
So if I understand this, you basically made the decision to hit a reset on life and move to a new area, taking next to nothing with you. Not really having a job or anywhere to really live, or basically at zero at this point. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, that's essentially what happened. So while my wife and I were together, we had actually planned on leaving North Carolina, and we came up here one year actually for the 4th of July. Had visited some friends, and we just fell in love with the place. I mean, land was cheap, and when you crawl out of a swamp in Eastern North Carolina, it's like 97 degrees and 100% humidity, and you come up here and it's like, 78 during the day, it gets down to 65 at night. There's a light breeze and it gets dark at 10 o'clock. It was like, this pretty much feels like heaven. We like this. And so we had planned on moving up together. And I hadn't mentioned it earlier, but I am a raging alcoholic, and by the grace of God, I've been sober coming up on 5.5 years. But through all of that process, we ended up separating. She moved up, and at the time, I had purchased a little 5-acre plot, basically on a land contract. It was more or less a rent to own situation, because that's what I could afford. And my credit score, I can't finance a bicycle, so it was a miracle that we got there. But so after she left, I more or less had still planned to move up here, and but it got expedited a little bit. At the time, I was self-employed, had a roofing company, and because most roofers are drunks, that's just statistically proven. But I basically finished up the jobs that I had. I took the few $1,000s that I had and put everything that I owned that I could fit on a triple axle homemade equipment trailer, hooked it to my 1980 GMC truck, and drove 1,000 miles up here. The property had a crappy old camper on it with it was in rough shape. It leaked, and the bathroom floor was pretty soft. Had no water or power, but it was as good a place as any to start over, and I really didn't have much in the way of money, so we kind of put it all on black, and just kind of restarted my entire life. By this point, I had been sober for a little while, and just the change was good and it was necessary, and I wanted to be near my kids. I had hoped that that things would work out with my wife from there, and eventually they did. Spoiler alert. But yeah, that's how I landed here. So I had what I could drag behind my truck and landed in a camper.
And somewhere along the way, when you started videoing this, I somehow ended up, one of your videos came across my feed on one of the social media networks. I picked it up, started watching it, started putting out, pretty regular content, and it amazed me from the beginning, like how somebody could just up and take off like that with not much of a plan, quite honestly. Where does somebody get the self-confidence to make that blind leap of faith?
Well, I've restarted my life a few times, and after you've done it the first time, it gets easier. Not that it's necessarily always the right way to go, but I did 6 years in the United States Coast Guard, and I got out. And when I got out, my wife was pregnant with our first, and then I had worked as a superintendent for another construction company for about 6 months, and I realized I was no good at working for other people. And we talked about it, and I made the decision to start my business. And, that was another kind of put it all on black situation. But I knew that if I never did it then, I would never do it. And I don't know if maybe it's fear of missing out or always just being okay with kind of where I'm at. I've been broke, but I've never starved. I've never been in a situation where I really truly didn't feel like there was the opportunity to kind of claw my way out of. Doesn't mean it was fun, but it's just I never really wanted to miss out on doing something worthwhile because of fear. I don't think that that's a very good way to live your life. I think that God presents us with opportunities, and sometimes we got to take them, regardless of knowing the outcome or not.
Okay. It's a pretty deep way of looking at it. Let's touch on that a little bit. During this journey, in the beginning there, did you have questions? Did you ever have a point where you kind of thought, man, did I make a mistake here?
Yeah, I got up here in September, and like middle of October, I wake up in the morning and snow's coming down. That was a big one. Like, what have I gotten myself into? That was big. But the other part of it was that sometimes you're put in a spot where you don't have a choice. I mean, I wasn't going to stay a long distance away from my kids just because that's where the money was. That's where I was established. That doesn't do anything for them. I mean, providing is important as a man, but ultimately I needed to be there. And I don't fault my wife at the time, because I mean, we were planning on doing it anyway. There was a lot of reasons that things went down the way that they did, and a large portion of those were on me and my own decisions. So it's on a certain level, I don't know if I really had the option. I mean, I guess I did, and I definitely pursued it a little bit unconventionally, and I guess I realistically could have gotten the job and then found the place to rent and did all those things normally. But when I was growing up, I loved being in the woods. I read Huckleberry Finn and wanted to live in the woods my entire life. So it was just kind of, it was a difficult situation that I found an opportunity in, which was to kind of live a different way. And You know, it didn't hurt that I didn't really have any bills. I didn't have a truck payment. I had a payment on the land. The camper was paid for. And obviously there were other difficulties like trucking water in and not freezing to death and all that, but that's fine. It's, kind of just made the best of the situation and went from there.
All right. So because you didn't have any other choice, you just kind of kept moving forward and did what you had to do to get things done.
Sometimes that's the answer. I mean, we all go through rough spots. We all go through times in our life where, we don't know what's coming next, or maybe we don't even know why we're in the situation that we're in. But, you just move forward. Sometimes it's robotic and mechanical and you have no clue what any of it's going to. I certainly had no idea that I would end up with a whole bunch of people paying attention to what I had to say. But I knew that I was there for a reason. One of those things you hear is like, everything happens for a reason. And sometimes that reason is because you're stupid and you make bad decisions. Well, I made plenty of bad decisions. So from there, my only option was just to move forward. It's obviously it's more complicated, but life and the decisions that you make in it, I think, are easier when you break them down to that level of simplicity.
I like that when you break down all the stuff that matters, but doesn't really matter at the core value of it. It does. I can see that. I can see how that definitely would make making a decision easier, because it either is or it isn't.
Yeah, I mean, everything can be broken down into a yes or no question if you dig deep enough into it, or a do or don't question. Either way, just simple. It's binary. I and I say that while at the same time I tend to really overthink things. It's not something that's innate. It's something that I've had to kind of work on along the way. But I find that it's easiest in the absolute worst of circumstances. Just kind of lands that way. I'm not sure why.
So you said you tend to overthink and overanalyze things. I'm afflicted with that too. And I've found that sometimes it's almost like I get into like this analysis paralysis thing.
Yeah.
Where I'm
Yeah,
looking
100%.
at every option there is, trying to pick the best option and decide what exactly it is the best way to go. I'm sure you've experienced that too.
Yeah.
And what have you done to kind of curb that through this process?
That one's tough. It's something that I still kind of struggle with. And honestly, it's only recently that I feel like I've made any progress with it. Like I said, in situations where it's like absolute rock bottom level, it was never difficult. But now that things are going pretty well, it tends to come out more almost when the stakes are lower, which is not very
I get
logical,
that.
but I've found, as ridiculous as it might sound, I've found that exercise has been a huge thing that's helped me in that. Just because, uh, as someone who like my brain tends to run too fast, and I have anxiety and whatever, but it's like because it goes too fast and it goes in too many directions, if I can reset my baseline by getting up in the morning and running it, because while I'm doing that, I'm not thinking about all the things. It's I had mentioned in another video, it's the only time when my mind is quiet while I'm awake. And starting the day that way has been a huge factor in helping me with decision making and all of that. I'm sure there's science behind it. I don't know the science behind it, but it's worked, so can't complain.
I can kind of relate with that. Totally different avenue. I mean, I'm not exactly built for running. I don't know if you've noticed that, but for me, it's fishing. Like
Yeah.
I get out by that water and throw a line in, and everything else disappears
Yeah.
for that
100%.
time frame. And that's when I do my best decision making, my best everything is in that moment.
Yeah. It just turns down the volume.
So, in one of your videos, you had touched on the fact that at some point during this, you found Jesus, or Jesus found you. Um, can you touch on that a little bit and talk about like how that came about, when that happened? Let's just go over that a little bit.
Well, to get there, I got to start at the start. I grew up, excuse me. I grew up, I think, with a peripheral understanding of Jesus and Christianity. We went to church up until I was maybe, uh, I don't know, 9 or 10 years old. We went regularly, and then from there, something happened. The church split, and we ended up becoming CEOs, Christmas and Easter only. Um, so it was kind of like lower level at that point, and while I still had a belief in God, uh, it didn't it didn't really take hold until later. And actually, when my wife and I first got together, one of the first things that we had done together was going to church. She was in the middle of her own kind of her own walk with faith, and kind of moving things forward with that, and we connected greatly over that. And so I was saved and baptized when I was 24. The problem is that it was it was really just the start, and along the way, I mean, I kept plenty for myself. I really didn't truly go through that process of surrender until much later, until my life hit absolute rock bottom. Went from drinking fairly casually to every night to heavy every night. I had a problem with porn for a long time, and that's not something that people like to talk about, but I mean, it made my wife feel terrible. Like it was not constructive in any way, but both those things, I mean, I just kept them for myself. I didn't surrender that part of my life. And so as things went on, um, we got to the point where she told me she didn't love me anymore. And I lost it. I mean, I lost my mind, to the point where I ended up hospitalized, full grippy socks, green scrubs, like just not, excuse me, not a very fun situation. The cops brought me there in handcuffs. Um, and that night, uh, as I was finally kind of starting to come out of, how bad my mind was racing, and how out of control it was. I had the doctor, the psychiatrist there at the, you know crazy section of the hospital where they lock you in. He looked at me and he told me, he's like, "Dude, you're an addict." He didn't call me an alcoholic. He didn't choose a different word. He said, "You're an addict." He said, "It doesn't matter what it is. If it gives your brain happy chemicals, you're going to go 100 miles an hour towards it." He said, "You can't change that. You can use it, but you cannot change that." And that was a huge moment for me. That was absolutely pivotal. And from there, I mean, I prayed. It was such a big revelation of who I was as a person, and not in like an accusatory way, just like that's how you are, dude. That's just how you're going to be. And I went from there, and I I immediately talked to my very good friend Joe. He picked me up from the hospital. I talked to him about everything that had happened, and then I went through like an outpatient treatment program, and then I had also gotten pretty heavily involved with the church. Had a really good pastor, and things really kind of landed from there. And so I leaned heavily on my faith there initially, and unfortunately, the damage had been done. And it was after I had gotten sober that my wife decided to leave. And I don't think that she handled the situation perfectly, but I mean, I had plenty of my own problems leading up to that. So there's no blame or anything like that on that end. But when she left, I really had a choice to make. Like, is this permanent? Am I going to keep on this path of faith and try and hold things together and to lean on Jesus like I'm supposed to, or are we going to go back to where we were? And I hated that guy. I really did. I hated the person that I was. I mean, I was, absolutely full blown alcoholic. It was never anything that was physical or anything like that, but I just wasn't a good dude. And I hung on to that for a long time, actually, after the fact. A lot of that guilt, but fortunately, the good Lord carried me through it, and went from there. And then it got bad again, after moving here, because I was hoping, everything was civil between us. I was hoping to reconcile maybe at some point, but to truly lean on faith in those moments. I'm laying there in the camper, and it's, the little space heater that I got's only got it up to 40 degrees. My whole life that I had worked for was, more or less behind, and I was starting over, and lonely, and all these things. It was what I had to cling to. And every time I distinctly remembered, every time I'd pray about it, it was like, God, what do I do? Is there any hope here? Is there what are we doing here? And every time I just had this overwhelming sense of just wait. And I won't say that I won't say that God was talking to me directly. But it was just this overwhelming sense in those difficult moments of God, just just wait, just hang on. And I did. Which brings me back to, I have had no clue where any of this was going, as far as making videos or any of that, because that, it kind of started after I got settled up there. I just, as the old saying goes, if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans.
That's so true. So, and the reason I had asked that, I myself found Jesus. Oh, I mean, like you, I kind of always had that peripheral understanding and the belief and all of that. But for me, it was almost like a hindsight moment. I'd gone through some real dark times. So to give you a really brief rundown of things, I had gotten crushed by a Subaru. I was working on the exhaust. It kicked the jack out, and the car fell on top of me.
My videos must give you a panic attack.
There's been a couple of moments where I'm like, oh, ah. But so that happened. And surprisingly, the only thing I did was like I tore a whole bunch of muscles up here.
Mm-hmm.
Adrenaline is a powerful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, then a little while after that was a really big hurt piece. My first wife actually, she had passed away. She committed suicide, and
Oh
I
man.
came home from work to find her. And that was a hurt piece. That messed me up pretty bad for a while. I
If
was
it didn't, I'd be concerned.
I said some really regretful things to God. Yeah, it was not nice. Uh, then a little while after that, uh, my grandmother had passed away. My dad passed away. It was just a series of just dark events, one after the other. And through all that, I'm trying to put myself back together and pick myself up. And I had this, like, I started going to church, and I started, because I realized where I was headed and the choices I was starting to make. Like, I started to drink a little bit more than I should, and I started, doing other things, and I I had a realization that that was not where I wanted to be going. So I ran as fast as I could in the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
Started attending church, started surrounding myself with positive influences and people I could reach out to, and all of a sudden I had this like epiphany happen, and it was like you had said, everything happens for a reason, and everything happens the way it does for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So each one of those events, I gained new skills, new abilities, and new tools to be able to handle each of the other events the way I did. Um, Now, did I handle everything perfectly and the way you should? No, absolutely not. There was lots of therapy involved. There was lots of you know some poor decisions and some looking back going, I could have done that a little bit better. But each event, the Subaru crushing me, I had a moment while I was underneath there that I apparently was unresponsive for like 15 minutes. And there was something that had happened to me, um, that gave me the understanding that God and heaven exist.
Mm-hmm.
I know it. I've seen it. No question. Because I had that, I was able to come to terms with my wife's passing because I had no question of where she was at. I didn't have any kind of doubts, anything like that. And that
Mm-hmm.
was my stronghold to get me through that. Because
Well,
I've
that's
done that, that allowed me to handle, the passing of my dad, passing of uh, my grandmother. My dad actually had a heart attack while we were out fishing,
mm-hmm.
and I come upon him, and that was another one of those moments. Like, that happened, and because of all my other skill sets, I definitely handled that a lot better than I would have if that had been the only instance of dealing with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Having all of those experiences combined gave me the tools to then turn around and help my current wife out. We were just dating at the time when her mom passed away. And I was
Mm-hmm.
able to be there for her and be her rock and really be her foundation when she had none. And at that moment, that was kind of when I realized and looked back and was like, hey, everything happened the way it needed to, even if it absolutely sucked and was devastating. But this was God's plan, and there was a reason for it.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing. That's a hard thing for people who maybe don't have faith or who are questioning, because when you talk about God's plan and it also includes difficult things happening, it's it can be tough. But at the same time, with if your entire worldview is centered around like, okay, my goal here is to serve God in whatever capability, whatever opportunities I've been given, that's the goal, that is the end game. And then looking back at all those struggles, it's almost like I can't look back at one and think, oh, that didn't need to happen, and it was the worst thing in the world at the time. But I can't pinpoint a single one and say no, we could have left that one out, and usually it's after the fact. It's almost always after the fact, but I think that through my own walk with faith, the more that I pursue the answer, the through reading the Bible and learning and trying to grow in that regard, the more I pursue it, the quicker the answer presents itself. Um, I find it interesting that you mentioned your own near death experience. I'm actually in the middle of Imagine Heaven. I forgot the author's name, but the entire like list recollections of people who've gone through NDEs and things like that, and stuff like that. Having never been through one, but seeing so many people from so many different backgrounds, religious or not, having similar experiences that are not related to each other in any kind of way is it's really fascinating, and I can imagine how that would give someone peace over something that difficult.
Yeah, it was just absolutely there aren't even words to really describe what I experienced in that moment. Like I can tell you like what I had seen and what was happening, but to describe that is something all of its own. Like all of a sudden I was surrounded by just a sea of people as far as you could see in any direction. And they were completely excuse me, completely devoid of color, like they chalk white, but not they didn't look like they were drawn in chalk. They, like you and me, just completely colorless. And everybody surrounded me like we're at the biggest concert you could imagine. And there's a hand on my back guiding me through the crowd. And there's people coming up like patting me and saying, they're all happy to see me there. And there's this noise. It sounds like a choir singing. Can't make out words, very almost operatic. And it's disorienting because you can't figure out where it's coming from. And then all of a sudden you realize it's because it's coming from all around you. All of the people that you can see in every direction are singing in unison this sound. And as that's going, then the crowd parts ways, and there's this everything gets to be color now, and it's the most vivid color that you could even imagine, and then some. Everything's just like the most perfect color. The green is like a perfect green. The blue is like a perfect blue. And there's this little white picket fence with an arbor. And standing at the arbor was my grandmother on my mom's side, she passed away when I was 12-ish. She was there to greet me. And she came up and gave me a hug and was very happy to see me. And then she leaned me back, and one little tear came down, and she just shook her head and turned me and patted me along my way down along the fence row. And as I was walking, there was a hill off in the distance with this great big enormous tree coming, on the top of this hill. And there was a sunbeam shining down on that tree. And then next thing I know, I'm back under the Subaru with this complete and total calmness about me. I knew exactly what I needed to do to get out from underneath that Subaru. And I was able to, with the calmest thought process, give my friend who was with me step-by-step directions to be able to get me out from underneath that car.
That's awesome, man. And it's fascinating too, like talking about the similarities between different people's descriptions of that kind of experience. The color is something that gets brought up a lot, and so many things get talked about it. It's like it's like more than sight. It's like you hear things, but they are more than sound. It's like truly absorbing and being a part of that. And I'm just talking about what I've read, but it's fascinating. Like I said, just God's real and heaven's real, dude. Like it's
absolutely,
that's it. That's all there is to it. And there are plenty of people who for their own reasons, they'll choose to reject that. But at the end of the day, we're all going to call on the name of the Lord. So there you go.
I'll tell you what, there's something about you, man, because I don't tell a whole lot of people that story. I don't share it with a lot of people, and here I am airing it out to the world because you and me are talking, and that's something that I've told a couple of people, and I kind of get this. I'll get a weird, funny side eye, or they'll like science it away and explain it to, lack of oxygen or this or that, or
yeah, it causes hallucinations and this, that, and the other, and that's fine. And you know what? I, even though I am a person of faith, I do have a tendency to approach things with a certain level of skepticism. If it was just a one-off story from one source, then yeah, I mean, I could have a certain level of skepticism over that. But there's been thousands, they've been documented, like, so it's not it's not that weird. And even beyond that, man, everybody has their own experiences. And I mean, we're talking within faith or just of the world. Everybody has their own experiences in lands where they do for a reason. I get along with most people, like even people that I disagree with, just because I at least try and maintain that perspective over who I'm talking to. Like, that's a person. They had their own life. They had their own from birth till now set of experiences that landed them where they did. Best I can do is have my own and share them. And it's funny because, like, my faith it's always been included in the videos and stuff that I do, but never, or rarely, I would say rarely, at the forefront of what I have to say. Because in some way I feel like my bigger purpose was, like I said, I could not have planned having the audience that I do. I could not have sat down and said, okay, I'm going to make videos and I'm going to do these things and it's going to grow and I'm going to get to this point and that's how I'm going to get there. That had nothing to do with me, man. I'm, just kind of a redneck who likes to fix old stuff. Like, and so, but I've always included it at the end of every video. I have a Bible verse that somehow ties into whatever it was that I was doing. And some of them are just there because they're funny. But, for the most part, it's like it all comes together. And I know there's a lot of people who watch what I do, and they have no faith in their life. They don't believe in Jesus. They don't believe in God or whatever. But I want them to look at me and what I'm doing and at least, kind of have the thought like, okay, what is it? Like, how come he don't get bothered by nothing? how come, how does he just keep moving? And so it's almost a tactical decision in evangelism, to not just throw it out there in everybody's face, because there's a lot of people who will, as soon as they hear it, they turn the volume off. And I feel like my place is a little bit different, maybe to reach somebody who has no faith, or maybe lost it a long time ago and they're in a bad spot. I never know what kind of effect I'm going to have when I put a video out that day. I've gotten messages after the fact that were like, dude, how did you know? but that's just, I mean, it's God's work, but it's also law of averages. You cast a wide enough net, you're going to land on one person who's like right there where with what you're talking about. So that's the underlying purpose. That's it.
So now that we've gone a little off topic and kind of went on our own little tangent there, I want to bring it back to you were talking about being an addict and your fight with addiction. And the question that I had that I want to know the answer is, what conversation did you have with yourself before you decided to put out on social media about your addiction and your battle and the things you've gone through? And because up to that point, everything was just kind of, pretty laid back, easygoing, some penis jokes in there, and everything was just pretty haha, lighthearted. And then all of a sudden you hit everybody with this video that, I mean, it caught my attention, and it was like, oh.
November 1st of 2021, I sat down at my kitchen table and I told, well, I think the views on that one are a little over 2 million now, but at the time, hundreds of thousands of people, how I landed in Michigan. Like you said, up until that point, I was just like, okay, I got this going on. And, like, there's this girl that, like, shows up in my videos. I refer to her as the angel of death, but she's, not a main part of it or anything like that. And what led to that was there was a certain circumstance in our life that we had been praying for a very, very, very long time. That circumstance is not public at the moment. It is within a few small groups of people, but it's not out there for the world. That story will get told, but long story short, I felt guilty. Like I'm sitting there, I'm like, everything that I have ever hoped and prayed for has landed. It took a long time. It didn't happen in the timeline I expected, but I'm like, I'm here. I got this incredible piece of property. My family's back together. I've got all these things, and I make freaking videos for a living. Nobody makes videos for a living. No one does that. Like, that's not a thing. So I just went through this period of time where it was like, I was just unsettled. I was like, either something's going to go wrong or like, I don't deserve this at all. And after quite a few conversations, and prayers, and talking to God, I was like, where I landed was, you're here for a reason. You did not go through all this by accident. There's a reason. And now you have an audience. And it was essentially an obligation to put it out there, to explain my background, my own personal struggles, and all these things. I didn't have a choice. So we're back there, like I'm not going to sleep at night if I try and kick this can down the road. And I did. I tried to kick the can down the road. I told myself, well, if I get 1 million followers, then we'll put it out there. That's the moment. And God was just like, nope, you're doing it now. Like, I didn't want to. That's why I was like so slow and measured with my words with that whole video, because it was like, okay, this is real, and it's a lot more than just the wiener jokes and the old tractors. And I received so many messages that I could not ever read them all, in the thousands.
I believe that. I have to say
that was
definitely like the best video of yours I've watched, because you could feel the connection there and feel the emotion, and like you really brought people to your level of understanding with that. It was quite impressive.
No, man, I even had like half of a plan or an outline, and I didn't look at it. I sat there, I said, God, give me the words, and click the button. That was like that was it. And it was one of the greatest things I've ever had the opportunity of doing. And it was nice because like I said, I got so many messages and so much support from that and the support's fine, and I don't know how to say it, but basically I do enjoy getting messages when someone says, hey, I enjoy what you're doing. But what I love is when people tell me, hey, man, I've been watching you since this point or whatever. I've been struggling with this, and now I'm 5 months sober or whatever. Like those ones, dude, I do a little backflip in my mind. Like I just, that is an opportunity, and it's an opportunity that only presented itself because in that moment, in that struggle, I just said, God, give me the words.
And that's almost like your little reward for allowing God to use you as an instrument.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I didn't know the outcome of it. I didn't know where it was going, but in those moments, being obedient to what you know is right, that's when God will bring you to the next level, and it's an incredible thing.
So, with that being said, in your experience and your battle, do you have what is like the most important piece of advice or insight that you've learned that you'd like to give out to anybody who's, let's say, relatively early in sobriety, or maybe less than a year, something like that?
Shoot wide, do everything. Like that's the best advice that I have. I do believe that God has the ability to heal our hearts, to move us forward, to inspire us. I also know that chemical dependency is a matter of what's going on in your brain. Neurons get remapped, things change. Your brain literally changes after messing with it for that long. And so I tell people, go to a meeting, go to a shrink, go to a church, do all of them. You don't even have to believe that it's going to work. You just got to show up, because in each of those things, you end up with more tools to help make it be successful. I mean, the number of people who attempt to quit drinking versus the number that succeed for each time that the attempt is made is in the single digits. I mean, it is low. And speaking from experience, trying to quit on my own before that at various points, yeah, no, it's not easy. But when you have a community of people who have been there, who know what's going to happen because they've been there, that's a good thing. When you have a person there who's helping you dive into the real reasons that you landed where you did, because in my opinion, addiction, alcoholism, it's a problem, but it's really a symptom. There's more going on. There's a reason that you landed there. And sometimes that reason is you, because you're stupid and you make bad decisions, but there's a reason regardless. So, being able to work through and figuring that out, and then the faith component of it, getting right with God and kind of addressing your purpose for existing on this planet. They all work in their own way. They all have benefits. And the thing is, man, those people, anybody that you're involved with, when you are get to the point where you're like blowing it wide open, like, yep, I'm an alcoholic. Those people want to help, dude. Like they want to support you. They're not looking at you like piece of crap. Look at this garbage human being. They're not. They're like, awesome. Let's make some progress, So my best advice in one sentence is shoot wide, and you don't have to believe it's going to work. You just got to show up.
All right. Awesome. I think there's definitely some wisdom to be had there, because you're covering all the bases you can, and kind of addressing multiple things at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty solid. You had said, so you mentioned about that sometimes there's things that go along with dependency. And you had touched on the topic of depression previously in some of your videos.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that depression and addictive personality kind of fuel each other and kind of run side by side?
Hard yes. Yeah. I mean, like, I've mentioned in other videos kind of talking about it as a specific, because depression and anxiety kind of go hand in hand, or often they do. And for me, anxiety is just noise. It's just going and going and going and going and going and going and going, and won't shut up. And sometimes it loops back to the beginning, and we haven't made any progress trying to solve our made up problem. So it's like, for me, alcohol shut the noise off. That was it. So it was a means of dealing with that. Same with depression, had a hard day and whatever else, everything's going wrong, but you're getting tore up with your buddies, man, those problems are gone, at least for a minute. But as I've also mentioned in another video, when you're doing that, you're just borrowing peace from tomorrow. You're not facing whatever it is that's going on. So I think that they often go together. I didn't know that I was depressed. And when I say depressed, I don't mean just sad. I mean, like, chemically in my brain, my neurons are firing and trying to give serotonin to other ones, and my other ones are like, nope, none for me, thanks. It's like, it's not, it's chemical. It's like, sometimes chemically in my brain, I have a hard time dragging myself out of bed. But the more time goes on and the more tools I have at my disposal and the more work that I put in to help try and overcome that, the easier it gets. You know, I truly do feel for anybody who's in that spot where they're just so down and their view of their life is so bad that they just feel like they can't keep moving forward in any kind of way. I get it, you know, because I've been there. But the other thing that I've said before is, you know, whether it's anxiety or depression or PTSD or whatever the mental challenge may be, it may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. You know, you nobody can fix you, but you and the work that you put in. Now I say that I say that knowing full well that God dragged me through some of these times. So, but I still had to put the work in, and I still put the work in every day. That's why I go run like Forrest Gump. It's because the happy chemicals, man.
So, other than running, what are some other things that you do to kind of, you know, keep that in check and, you know, kind of just keep yourself motivated and moving forward?
Every day something has to get done. In some ways, my whole life has been built around this. I mean, when you have a farm, you have animals, you have other things that are your responsibility. Like it or not, depressed or not, stuff has to get done. And so doing the first thing makes doing the second thing easier. You know, starting the day with something productive. Sometimes the only productive thing that you can do is make a couple eggs and have a good breakfast. But it's something. It's a step. That I don't have an overall blanket answer that I think really necessarily applies to everybody. I think that many different things can be helpful. I personally have been in therapy before. I found it helpful. I also did not want that to be a bi-weekly appointment for the rest of my life, so I was kind of done with concrete goals in mind. Like, okay, let's get the tools, let's get what we need, and then apply that. I try and do hard things, because the more you do hard things, the easier it is to do hard things. Whatever that is, whether it's something work related, setting a lofty goal like building your own freaking house out of lumber that you have to make yourself, or you know, hey, I haven't run in 10 years. Let's run a marathon. Let's sign up for that. You know, like just all the things. Not necessarily pursuing comfort. We live in a very comfortable time in history. You know, all the food that we could ever want is available, and it doesn't require us to chase it down through the woods. We don't have to plant next year's dinner, but we can choose to plant next year's dinner and make that a point. And then I'd say the last thing is put this stupid thing down, which is ridiculous for me to say as a person who makes videos for a living. I hope you watch what I'm doing and then you throw the phone away until next Monday. Like, but no, man, because it's just such a freaking, it's a time suck, dude. It's an escape. That's what it is. It's an escape. It's the same escape that that running through the woods is, but it's not productive. It's the same escape that going out fishing is, but it's not productive. It's just mindless. Just oh look, there's a cat video, and you know, oh, a car wreck, and you know, it's nonsense. It doesn't there are huge benefits to having access to every piece of information that's ever existed in your pocket. I've used it, like what RPM is the governor on a 471 Detroit diesel. Having access to that is freaking fantastic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you've got all these things and algorithms that are designed to keep you hooked. They're designed to be addictive, dude. It's no good. It's not helping you. Put it down.
And bringing that up, it reminds me of something I had seen recently. So, me and my wife had gone out to dinner, and while we were out at dinner, there was a table of about 10, older teenagers,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all sitting there, and you could have heard a pin drop. None of them was speaking at all. They're just sitting there with their phones in front of them. And every
Mm-hmm.
once in a while, every once in a great, few minutes, you'd hear, "I know, right? Yeah, I hear you." They're texting each other at the table, having conversation through text message, and they're sitting right across from each other.
Bless their hearts.
I'm sitting there and I'm observing this. I look at my wife because I'm not going to lie. I'm a people watcher. I'm sitting there. I'm observing this, and I'm just kind of elbowing her. I'm like, do you see this? Like, they can't just interact face to face. Like, really?
Yeah. No, and I mean it's sad. It's sad to see that, but also I can't act like I'm in some kind of superior place than that, because they're teenagers. I mean, they grew up that way and always having access to that technology. But I've found myself in situations where I'm just sitting there doing nothing, and like my kids are playing or doing something or building something, and I'm like, that's where my attention should be. And I feel terrible, dude.
Yeah.
Like anytime that happens, and since I've made a conscious point of putting it down, it definitely happens less. But there's times, man, where I'm like, holy crap, I'm missing it.
Yeah,
So there's
I'm right there with you. I've caught myself too. There've been times that I'm sitting there just scrolling away, and all of a sudden, hey, you know what? Life is happening around me. Maybe I should take some time away.
Hey babe, can you give me a glass of water? Carlos is the best. She's like burning holes in me right now, but she is. She's gonna get
So
anyway.
So yeah, and yeah, I'm right there with you. I've caught myself doing it
Bad,
too
man.
at the time.
It's bad.
I'm sure that there's been some sacrifices that you've made for the videos and also for the homestead itself. Uh, what are some examples that really stand out to you that you'd like to share?
The biggest thing has been time. For an average project, if I just do it versus if I do it and film it and edit it and post it, I think it probably increases the amount of time of that project by like 2 to 3 times. Honestly,
Okay.
it takes a lot. I don't have a production company. I don't have anybody filming. It's literally just me. There's my GoPro. That's it. Every time there's a camera angle change, that was intentional. Every little thing. My average videos usually have about 100 individual clips that got to get cut up and spliced together and laid over top of each other. And it takes a lot of time. So the projects take longer, but in a roundabout way, because I have been fortunate enough to make a living with it, it's not like I'm doing them just in the evenings. I'm able to just do them. So it's kind of a balance, really. I wouldn't consider any of it a sacrifice. The way that I would put it is that, if I'd never filmed anything, my life would look basically exactly the same. Um, it Some things might take longer, some things might have been shorter because I was able to, purchase a 50-year-old backhoe when I wouldn't have otherwise. So it just kind of, it all shakes out. But ultimately, I just keep doing it.
All right. So let's talk about the flip side of that. In what ways has doing these videos and the homestead itself helped you?
Oh, it's the greatest job in the world, man. No one gets to do this. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I get to do what I was doing and make a living. And I need to, qualify that. I'm not a millionaire. I have not been made rich by any of this. It's better than roofing houses. But it's, you know, it's the other thing that's been really, really awesome about it is just because I have such a large audience. Any given video that I do, unless it's roof work or a few other construction related things, I'm not an expert at. I'm probably self-taught on. And I've got an audience that includes at least a handful of people who do that thing every single day. And one of the strange things that I've noticed that I'm super fortunate to have is that my comments are generally super supportive and not an angry place where people argue. So a lot of times I'll have people like, "Hey man, I saw your video on doing this. I've been doing it for 30 years. Next time maybe try doing it this way." And I'm like, "Dang, that is a good idea." Like, I wish I'd have thought of that. But
All
but
right.
it's really just, I mean, access to people who know more than me. As the saying goes, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I'm in a really big freaking room, man. So it's been super cool.
The flip side of that is how's Andy's Little Homestead helped you?
Oh man, it's been, I mean, it's everything. For one, I'm able to make a living doing it. It hasn't made me a millionaire because I've uh, decided not to, do any kind of sponsorships or anything like that, because I want to keep things honest for the people who are watching. But you know, it's beyond that. I have the benefit of access to people who know what they're doing. Like, if it's not construction related, it's not something that I really have a whole heck of a lot of experience in. Most of the things that I do are self-taught, and so if I put something out there, there could be a dozen people watching who do that thing every single day, and most of them are pretty cool. Most of them will, every now and again you'll get one who's like, "You're a total idiot," brr, brr, brr. And I'm like, "Shut up, make your own channel." But most people are like, "Hey man, watch the video. I've been doing this for 15, 20, 30 years or whatever. Next time, why don't you try this? It'll help with whatever problem you had." And I'm like, "Dang man, that is a good idea. I should have done that." Like, and so it's helpful. As the saying goes, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I have the benefit of being in a really big freaking room, so I get to
Uh,
draw
that's
all that knowledge.
that's not something that I would have really thought about, but that is great to touch on the fact that you have a fan base to give you some feedback and advice.
Yeah,
So yeah, I definitely understand that.
yeah, man.
You had mentioned in recent video, you and Carlos both are having some health issues at the moment. How are you both doing, and are things getting better or moving forward with that?
So on my end, I had what I thought was a hernia turned out to be a really swollen up lymph node right near my no-no bits, and it like scared the crap out of me, to be completely honest. And I had a real bad fever that was associated with it, and I was like, "All right, this is how we go, fun, good times." And as it fortunately, my white blood cell count was still good. So and I went through, had the CAT scan. They didn't find anything, and it can be, just your body fighting off something. It was just the first time I've had a little lump down there. Not too exciting ever.
I'm sure that would get anybody's attention. That's not something. I'm sure that was probably quite painful too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It hurt a lot, and then again having the fever with it, but the fever went away after maybe a week and a half, and it was never like crazy high, and it's slowly but surely kind of going away. So I'm gonna do the smart thing, ignore it, pretend it never happened, and then my my wife, unfortunately, she back in January, for anybody who hadn't been paying attention to the channel, she actually got up to use the bathroom and collapsed in the middle of the night, and broke her fall with her face. It scared me to death. She went to the hospital, and kind of been looking at things, and unfortunately nothing moves too quickly. But she's been through multiple heart monitors and stuff. Everything electrically in her heart is good, though it does randomly start to race. She's tired a lot, and there's been other stuff like shortness of breath, and we're finally looking in like the autoimmune direction. But that is a big that's a lot of different stuff that it could possibly be. I mean, it just, there's so much that goes into getting a diagnosis for something like that. So we're kind of just going through the process and moving forward. Other than that, I've kind of trying to eat a little healthier, stuff like that. Not that we were real bad about it before, but being intentional with it. Unfortunately, it's still ongoing, and it's, hopefully we get some answers soon. But
Well, I'll definitely hope and pray that you guys get some concrete answers and a direction to move in sooner than later.
I hope so, man. Yeah, we'll just keep moving forward, and keep trusting the good Lord in all of it, and it'll be
Sounds
all
like
right.
the good news is you guys know some things that it's not, at least at this point.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're still, when after the 30-day heart monitor, I'm expecting like they're going to tell her she's got to be on a pacemaker for the rest of her life or something like that, and they're like, no, electrically speaking, there's nothing wrong with her heart. And I'm like, okay, that's good. The heart's a scary thing, man.
Yeah.
It's this one muscle, just one, no backups, no redundancies, and it's got to work all the time.
Yeah.
And it's only got to screw up once to kill you. Like, dude. So it's
Oh yeah. I couldn't even fathom like how you handled that. That's intense.
I mean, it is what it is, man.
Yeah. It's another one you just do.
Sometimes that's all you can do.
So all right. At this point, I think we've gone over enough serious stuff. I kind of made a small list of just some rapid fire, fun little questions just to kind of wrap things up here. So we'll start out with them and then we'll close out.
Let's do it.
That sound? All right. So what's your favorite food?
Ooh, I like to eat. I part of the reason I like working out is because I want to continue eating, and I don't think I have a favorite food, but I have a favorite category, and that's Cajun food. Freaking gumbo and jambalaya. Gumbo is one of my favorite things to make. That was actually like the first thing that I cooked on camera. I believe it was 5 degrees outside. It warms the soul, man. So yeah, Cajun food.
All right.
Cajun food and Southern food, dude. I love fried chicken and fried everything and all the stuff that's terrible for you. I don't plan on stopping.
So the flip side of that, what's your least favorite food?
There aren't many things that I don't eat. A lot of people up here in Michigan eat cottage cheese. That stuff is disgusting. I don't know how you eat that nasty curdle crap. I don't get it. So you're gonna have to explain it to me like I'm 5, because that's disgusting. So yeah, that one but I eat most things, but that's one that I'm just like hard no.
All right. Favorite color?
And sour cream, which is on the subject of cottage cheese. Carlos just brought it up. Sour cream, on the subject of cottage cheese. If it was called sour milk, you wouldn't eat that crap, all right? Because it's gross. It's spoiled. It's cream that went bad. Why would you eat that? Don't. And I mean, people, they put it on their dang white people tacos, and I just, ew.
All right. Favorite color?
I don't have one, but when me and my wife met, I asked her this question, because that's what you do. And she asked me mine, and I said it was orange so that it would be unique. And I threw some crap in there about a sunset. It's complete nonsense. I don't have a favorite. I don't know. Green looks good on me. It matches my eyes.
What's your favorite animal on the homestead?
Chickens.
Chickens?
The chickens. They're
Okay.
productive. They're low maintenance. They give you a perfect high quality protein and fat source, and you don't have to really do anything. They're wonderful, beautiful critters that deserve our respect. Second to pig, because pig makes barbecue.
So, which animal on the homestead could you do without?
Goats. Get rid of them.
The great Houdinis of the animal world.
And they're terrible. And they walk around like they own the place, and they don't contribute in any kind of way. They're not very smart. They headbutt you in the legs, and they yell at you. They're like, I'm in an abusive relationship with these goats that I didn't even want, but my wife wanted them, and I love my wife. So guess who has goats now? Still.
Yep. So, how many working pieces of equipment do you currently own?
Are we counting trucks?
Sure. And by working, I mean currently running and functioning.
Yeah, I know what working means. Thank you. I'm counting the sawmill because it has an engine.
That's a piece of equipment.
6.
6?
Mm-hmm.
All right. How many non-working pieces of equipment do you currently have?
5.
All right. So you're almost 50.
That's a pretty good balance. Okay, that's over a 500 batting average, and all statistics sound better when you put them in the form of a batting average.
So, all right. So you're doing good there, 50-50. Gives you something to work on, and you have something to take its place for.
And 2 of those 5 are real close. Like, I got to get the track back on the dozer, and I got to get a fuel pump on the dump truck. Oh, no, it's 6 dead ones. I forgot about that truck. There was another truck.
Okay.
Yep. So 6, 50-50 is what it is. But yeah, some of them are close. Some of them less so.
All right. So do you have a favorite sport?
No. Honestly, I started working the summer after 8th grade, and I never stopped. I worked through high school. I worked 30 to 40 hours a week. Like my junior and senior year, I got out of school at noon to go to work, and just work, man. I don't have the attention span to sit down. If I had to pick one, I'd say like minor league baseball, because it's fun to go to with the kids. You can pay attention or not. It's a good way to burn a few hours, and I enjoy that. If I were to pick a sport, like prior to high school, I played baseball, but yeah. So if I had to pick one, that'd be it. But I don't follow anything.
All right. See, for me, it's football, but that's because in high school, I went out for the football team and ended up blowing my knee out, and that ended my career before it started.
That's a good time.
So, yeah. I like football though. So, ideal vacation spot: beach house or cabin on the lake?
We're almost then. You're gonna throw out stupid questions. Cabin, dude. Cabin on a lake, miles away from anybody. I want to be further into the nothing. I want to have to take a seaplane to Walmart. I don't want, in a perfect world, farther away is better.
I kind of figured that's where you were going with that, but I wanted to throw an easy one in there just for the hell of it.
Well, and it's funny because I generally like people and get along with people. I don't really want to be around people that I don't know. I hate traffic. I hate this time of year because we got a fairly large highway that runs through where I'm at, and all the fudgies come up from downstate. That's what they're called. People from downstate they come up for the fudge. They're called fudgies. Just less people that I don't know. I'm cool with one-on-one conversations or little groups of, my friends and people that I know. But as a whole, I don't want to look at anyone.
I can understand that. I'm born and raised in the mountains. I'll take my mountains any day of the week.
It's better.
So, all right. Well, I do appreciate you taking time from your busy schedule to do this.
No, man, it was a lot of fun.
I really enjoyed it. I hope maybe we can do some more of this in the future.
Yeah, man.
Do you have where can people find your videos, and do you have a link to that or anything you want to share?
Just Facebook and YouTube. It's just Andy's Little Homestead. We talked about a lot of things today, and a lot of things will actually make sense if you scroll all the way down and start at the beginning. Now, there's a big gap in YouTube because I had issues with them flagging my music for copyright, even though I had paid for the rights to it. So if you're really interested, anybody watching and wants to go all the way back to the beginning of me living in a camper until now, that would have to be on Facebook, and just look up Andy's Little Homestead. There is a group called Andy's Little Homestead that is not affiliated with me at all. It's some scammers trying to sell Eastern European weight loss pills or something like that. And some grandma who cooks and posts her videos there, and it has nothing to do with me and never has. But it's the internet, man. It's just a wasteland of nonsense. So the page, Andy's Little Homestead, the one that says 730 something thousand followers, that's the right one. And then anybody who has been through and is interested in supporting, I also have the Patreon where we met. And that's, again, just in the little search bar, Andy's Little Homestead.
All right. Well, I thank you for giving us your time, and I want to thank anybody who's watching this series on the Boiling Point podcast. Please leave us a comment, share out episodes. We're available on Rumble, YouTube, and Facebook. Please visit our storefront to help support the Boiling Point podcast. And all of its shows at bonfire.com/store/the Boiling Point podcast. And Marcus Frederiksen is going to play us out. Good night.